Welcome back to the Unstuck movement. These are true testimonies of breakthrough. I am your host, Rob Z. Today we have the wonderful Shell Mendelson with us on the podcast. And Shell, I love to dive in right away with a powerful question. And I'm really excited to talk to you about ADHD and how it's impacted your life and how we can use it in our life if we're diagnosed with it to our advantage. But the big question I have for you to start things off is, what was the turning point for you that made you realize that something had to change in your career?
Right. Thank you for that question, Rob. So I was diagnosed very late in life. And when I say late in life, older than you are now. That was how late it was. And it came after I had had a fairly good career. It wasn't a thriving career, but I've been doing this work of ADHD career coaching for 35 years, with a big break in between to start a franchise system called Kids Art, which is a children's art franchise. Now you have, if for your ADHD listeners, you will understand what I mean when I say I woke up one morning with a creative idea to start something, or just to think about doing something that involved children and art, because I've always been an art person. The art programs were being taken out of my son's school, and I just thought, well, somebody's got to do something to get art out to the kids and help them create confidence in this area. And I had a best friend at the time who was an artist. I grew up with her, and she was teaching a program that seemed like it might be a good fit. And so I enlisted her. I enlisted eventually enlisted quite a few other people, and just really put this whole idea together. And we started literally a franchise 2 years later. So the franchise at the time, before I was diagnosed, we were fairly successful. We were in 39 states and 16 countries. We were having, we had thousands of kids who had been impacted by our program. It was really fulfilling a mission I had to bring art to children. And it took me way off the path of doing the work that I really love doing, which is the work I'm doing now. But because of my ADHD, which was undiagnosed this entire time, I was not aware of how important it was for me to be doing work that I really love doing on a day-to-day basis. So when everything took shape, and then I just was caught up in the day-to-day, I realized I was bored out of my mind. Number one, I was not having fun. I didn't even like the people I was working with anymore. And this was several years later, right?
Mhm.
I was butting heads with people. My ideas weren't coming through. I was this creative person who had ideas, which a lot of us do. We have these great ideas, and we know that we can almost see into the future in a way. So we have this 360-degree kind of uh, mind, the way we think. And when we present ideas, if we're not really careful, it can come across as being overbearing to some people, or too much, or not realistic. So if you're working with neurotypical people, which is what I was doing, it was very frustrating for me, because they just didn't get me, you know? And it took me years to finally realize that it just wasn't working for me anymore, and I was miserable. And then I had this whole company that it became a corporate entity, which I never liked working for corporations, and I had become one. And I just felt like it was this big albatross. And I'll talk a little bit more about this in a bit, but when you're not doing work that you love, and I didn't understand this at the time, but with ADHD, if you're not doing work that you really enjoy doing and you're attracted to and feel excited by in some way, it will present all kinds of problems for you. And it will take various forms. And so it came out for me, and for anyone who's worked with a boss or a CEO who has ADHD that's undiagnosed, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I was that person. So I like to say, yeah, I've got some karma I have to deal with around that. Um, it was I was not fun to be around. The meetings were, every time we'd have a meeting, it was butting heads and it was very uncomfortable. I was miserable. So, and it showed up, it just showed up, and things really devolved for me after a while. And it just got to the point where the people, my cohorts, my colleagues were just frustrated with me. I was frustrated with them. And it, I ended up leaving, and it was not pretty. Let's put it that way. It was not pretty. I ended up leaving. It was not pretty. Uh, in the meantime, I realized there was something wrong. That was when I finally got real with myself, that there was something off with me internally. And what it was I was undiagnosed with ADHD. So I finally went. It was interesting. 2 years before, I had a friend who was a therapist who sent me a book on ADHD. She had a son with ADHD, and we never talked about it. She never said, I think you might want to check this out. She just sent me the book. And I looked at the book and I put it in the drawer and said, oh, that's for kids. Like I just laughed. I didn't take it seriously. But when I moved, after I got divorced, separated from my husband and divorced, the new place I moved into, I put it up on the shelf. And when I knew instinctively, literally went crawling to that book, put my hands on it on the bookshelf and started reading. And it was the big epiphany. That's when things really shifted for me. All of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. I'm not crazy. This is a real thing. And I just cried. You go through it's almost like all the stages of grief.
Mm-hmm.
And so I finally got the diagnosis. I went to a professional and got the diagnosis. And it was like a weight had lifted off my shoulders. And so when things started turning around for me was when I went back to doing the work I really love to do, which is this work that I'm doing now. And I started working with clients again. It was just like, the sea had parted for me. It was wonderful. And I had left it for too long. I forgot what it felt like to really be doing something that I really, really, truly enjoyed. And it didn't stress me out. It didn't have that stress level that I had when I was working in the franchise system. So as what I finally targeted my work with strictly people who are neurodivergent, ADHD/neurodivergent, because many of us have dual diagnosis. So there's the ADHD, Asperger's, autism in general. And so I started working with people who had definitely ADHD, but might have other diagnoses, including anxiety, and almost everyone seems to have that diagnosis as well. So when I started doing that, I just loved what I was doing. I mean, I could relate to the people I was working with. They could relate to me. We could have really good, open, real conversations with each other, and I help to move them through the process that I take them through, which I now call the career galaxy. Now, before that, I was trained by Richard Bowles, who wrote What Color Is Your Parachute many years before. And so before I started Kids Art, I was taking people through that process. But when I began working with people with ADHD, neurodivergent folks, I realized that there was so much more that had to be done. I had to create more graphics. I had to create articles and do things that they could actually download when we were working together and add to the process. That really took their ADHD characteristics into consideration as we were going through it. So that was what led me to doing the book, Unlock Your Career Path. And before that, it took me to creating the Your Next Career Move Masterclass that I've been doing for 4 years. So everything started evolving in a very positive way after that. And this is where I am today. So
very interesting. And I really I want to go into more different pieces of this because I find it fascinating that diagnosis changed everything. Like, just the fact that you got that, reconstructed everything for you. Before we go any further into that, I just want to give you a short intro just so people know who you are as we go deeper into this conversation. So this podcast is for breakthrough, right? This platform is to help people know that there's possibilities for breakthrough in their lives and things they seem stuck in. Sometimes you're stuck in life, business, or in a certain state, right? Stuck in maybe something that you don't even know that you're suffering with. So having this breakthrough for you is huge. And I want other people to know that there's possibility for breakthrough for them also. This platform is sponsored by the Connected Leaders Academy. Check out connectedleadersacademy.com. Shell Mendelson, with over 30 years of experience, specializes in helping the neurodivergent community define and create sustainable careers through counseling, coaching, and her course, Unlock Your Career Path. And I was really excited to connect with you because I was diagnosed with ADHD. I was diagnosed a little bit later in life also. I think I was diagnosed when I was 30 years old. And it had a big change and an impact on me also. And so I'm curious for yourself, what specifically, like as you got that diagnosis, what specifically started to change for you just on a day-to-day basis? Like knowing that you had ADHD, what started to change for you that you noticed was having a positive impact on your life?
I think the main thing was not feeling alone, not feeling like I was, some anomaly out there trying to, that there was something wrong with me, and just feeling like there was a way to manage all of it. And started looking at the tools, the management tools. I did not, I tried medication that didn't work. I think I'm too old for medication. It just doesn't sit well with me. But I have management tools that I use, and those, it's not perfect, but it works. And I was able to see and really acknowledge all the positive aspects of my ADHD, the things that kind of set me apart. And it was that creative mind. I always had creativity in terms of ideas and problem solving skills, and a lot of the skills that the people I work with also have. Love creating systems. That's why I created the course. Love the idea of having some kind of structure where you can be free to be yourself within that structure, but it still helps you to stay and not go kind of out of control. And the process, I love developing and elevating the process that I was doing. That was really fun for me. So much of it just became more enjoyable. I mean, life became more enjoyable, especially when I started meeting other people with ADHD and we could connect. And I just made friends and found just a whole community. I'm going to the conference, the ADDA conference in November. I can't wait to see all the people that I talk to online all the time. It was just like a whole world opened up.
Cool. I love that.
And
That's
it was
powerful.
great.
And I think something you just said right there for me is huge. The freedom within a structure. Sorry, by the way, if you can hear my dog going nuts right now. Freedom within a structure is so important because if we just have freedom, that's an issue, because now you're just freedom without boundaries or structure is chaos. And for somebody with ADHD, it's increased chaos. So building a structure into your life allows you to have freedom inside of that structure. But I think this is the misconception that we have about freedom, is that we should have no structure, and that just does not work. But we need to have some sort of built-in structure that allows us to express our creativity. So I'm really glad that you touched on that. And real quick, I want to jump into our sponsor. So 60 seconds to shout out our sponsor. When we come back, though, I want to understand more about two things. The signs that you were experiencing that something was wrong and that you had to see if, figure that out. Like, what were the signs that you had ADHD, what was wrong? But also, specifically, what were those management tools that you found that really helped you? And we're going to dive into that in 60 seconds.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world, globally, all across the country, high performers, titans of industry. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, this is where you want to be. Join the Connected Leaders Academy today. We are scaling massively. We want to welcome you in. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JAESCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
I love this topic, Shell, and for me, it's something that affects me personally. So it has much more weight to it, but I think it's a very important conversation to have just because of the work that you've done with it. What were the signs for you? Like you said, you had lots of conflict and it was centered around like the fact that you were undiagnosed with ADHD. What were these things that were going on that were something where you knew something was wrong?
Well, again, I'll say for people with ADHD, working in an environment where you're the only person with ADHD and everyone else is neurotypical, and they're used to doing things a certain way, and they're not used to hearing about creative ideas or exploring creative ideas. Within my own company, I butted heads quite a bit with a couple of the people that I was working with who were very analytical. And many of us, by the way, with ADHD are analytical, but to a fault. I mean, and I'm analytical in one way, but I'm also, I like to sift and sort things and do what I like and, not do the things I don't like as much now. But, it was very difficult to navigate all of that within the context of being the CEO and founder of this company. I didn't know how to really be a CEO. I didn't like that role. The role I was in, I didn't like. So I kind of gave it up. So there was a problem with that. First of all, I didn't really want to give it up, but I did give it up because I didn't want the responsibility. It wasn't making me happy anymore. I didn't feel like I was serving the franchisees or serving the company well doing that. But it was hard for me to find a place after that for myself. And I felt like the lack of respect wasn't there in a way, but it was very difficult getting my ideas across because I still felt like I was working 12 hours and, working on different aspects of the company because I kind of could see what needed to get done. But I just wasn't having fun with it. I mean, the bottom line is you have to really enjoy what you're doing. And most of the day, I was not enjoying what I was doing.
Yeah. That's how I can definitely relate to the more success I have is directly related to how much I enjoy and connect with what I'm doing, which I would say most people
Really?
would want to feel that way. They would want to feel like they're really connected to their
Yeah.
job. What management tools did you use that helped you once you were diagnosed? You said medication wasn't right for you, but as far as like personal management kind of stuff, what worked for you?
A lot. I have to calendar everything. Everything. I cannot. Yeah, planning for me is difficult. So if I plan anything, it has to be planned way in advance. So I almost go to an extreme with all of that. And I'm going to Europe. I'm going to Europe on the 28th. I'm going to Spain, and I've been planning for months. Getting the right luggage, getting the right everything has to be. I go like ad nauseum with all of that, but it really helps for me to calendar it all and to do things as much in advance as I can do when I'm preparing for something. I use in my work as a solopreneur, I work from home and I have been working at home for years. The best tools I have are human tools, like people who are actually helping me get stuff done. I have an incredible virtual assistant. I now have a great SEO person. I have a great person who helps you with like graphics and things like that. And I use Calendly. I don't know if anyone, do you use Calendly? I'm telling you, it's the best tool ever that's
Mhm.
out there. I'm sure there are other calendar tools, but I just can't get away from it. I'm addicted to it. But finding the tools and finding other people to help me get things done that I don't enjoy doing. And I know instantly if I'm not going to do it now, instantly. And I know instantly when I have to find somebody or a tool to help me to get it done. So that's kind of where I go now. It's much easier than it used to be. Used to try and get everything done myself. And then I found myself, falling flat because I couldn't get stuff done. I was trying to do things I didn't really like doing.
Mhm.
But now I really focus on doing the things I really enjoy doing, like this podcast. Being interviewed, I love being interviewed because I can just talk about the work that I truly enjoy doing, and it's not work to me. This kind of a thing is not work to me in any way, shape, or form. So
Mhm.
try and find the pieces that I really enjoy doing. I just kind of do them to the max, and then the pieces that I don't, I have other people help me with.
Interesting. So, and when you talked earlier about like, when you have ADHD, you must do what you love for a living. When you're helping people, because I mean, who doesn't want to do what they love for a living, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we all want to do what we love for a living, but oftentimes in life, you can find yourself really good at something that you don't enjoy. I've been there. I'm sure many people have been there. Something you excel at, but you don't necessarily get a lot of joy in your life out of it. So when you're working with people with ADHD, or as you say, neurodivergent, how do you help them, number one, figure out what it is that they love to do? Because sometimes that's difficult. And then how do we turn that into an actual career or profession that's either they start their own business or they go and work for somebody? Like what are some of the pieces of the puzzle that if somebody's watching or listening to this and they feel like this applies to them, that they could do to get that ball rolling, to push themselves in the right direction so they are doing something that they love for a living?
This is my work. This is what I do. This is what I live for. I live to help people figure this out. So, by asking the question, what do I really want in my work? Not very many people can answer that
Mm-hmm.
and articulate it and really get it and feel confident in their answer. So, when you say there are people who don't really enjoy what they're doing out there, probably the majority of the people who are working today do not enjoy doing what they're doing with or without ADHD. The reason why it's so important with ADHD is that you can do masking, as they call it. You've heard that term, where you mask your symptoms of ADHD to try and be like a normal neurotypical person, try and do things the way they do, try and fit your little square peg into a round hole, and it doesn't work after a
Mm-hmm.
while. It works up to a point. Up to a point. And for some people, that point goes beyond what others, for some people like me, it didn't last very long. It had to end very quickly before I could, I was in my 20s and I said, that's it. I've got to find something I love doing. But there are people I work with in their 60s, people in their 50s. I would say the average is early 30s around there. And I
Mm-hmm.
work with people just coming out of college. So all ages. I mean, and what I find is that many people, when they come to me, they have been kind of successful in different areas, but they have never truly defined or put themselves on what I call a nonlinear path with a foundation to start growing in whatever they're doing. They kind of trip into different positions that they find they're very good at. And some of them they like, and some of them they really don't like. And they job hop, they get fired, they get laid off, they go into these PIP programs, which take them completely off track.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many things I could say about that. I wish they would go through come to me first before they end up in that kind of a situation. But unless you know what direction, and I say non-linear, non-traditional for us, because it's almost always going to look like that when we figure this stuff out. And I'll go through all the elements that I use to help people. But when we do that, they will be able to, identify some areas that really could lead them in a direction that would be fulfilling and sustainable over time. It's so that and they can grow. When I say nonlinear, I'm sure when you think about what you've done in your life, it didn't take a straight up path. You probably zoomed around a few times, maybe did a little of this over here and a little of that, and finally things started to come together. That's kind of how it was for me.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to have some idea. And so one of the keys to finding that is to be completely honest with yourself and to understand that society in general is going to take you off track when there are outside influences that impact the choice you make. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody has outside influences that impact them. And so when we work together, I always tell them, as you're going through this process, the career galaxy process, you are not to talk to your spouse or anyone close to you or anyone in your immediate circle or anybody about what you're doing in this class, master class, with the exception of the people that are in the class. Those become your cohorts, your network, for the reason that all it takes, and you can tell me yourself, all it takes is a side glance, a side eye, or somebody kind of like going, oh, okay, or have you thought about this? What about that? How are you going to make money at this? This is going to take too long. There's no way you're going to be able, all those voices will come into play. And usually those are the voices that have taken us off track to begin with. And so it's literally coming back to yourself by really recognizing that. And so that is the emotional aspect of what we're doing. We call it the safekeeping self. That's a part that will keep you stuck, keep you, take you right back to status quo and take you right back to what's safe. So this process involves trusting, honesty, trusting your gut, learning how to trust your gut, and being rigorously honest with yourself to the point where you start to notice when that safekeeping aspect is coming in. So it's becoming more and more aware of it. I ask people to make it like a visual kind of thing, like a little ghoul sitting on your shoulder that you just flip off, right? And then to write about it, because it happens every day, all day. This thing is being imposed on us. So it's not easy for people. That's why they will go into something that's safe, or they'll go to the next shiny object class. You ever taken a shiny object class? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. We all have.
I've spent too much time on shiny objects to know that I don't need shiny objects.
And money, right?
Yeah.
Courses that are really expensive that sound really good and you're kind of roped into, but they don't really serve you on a because you haven't really identified yet what it is that you truly need to get to the next step, right? So this is really the process that helps you get there. And so we use the metaphor. Can I show you my little planets thing?
Sure.
We use so if for anyone who can visually see this is called the planets my career galaxy. So you'll notice that each one of them has writing in them and space for you to write in it. And each one of those planets represents a different aspect of what you really need to consider before you make another decision. And that would be like the skills you want to use, the people you want to work with and for. The working conditions, and we really break that down a lot in great detail. And so we talk about the physical working conditions and the non-physical working conditions. And then the subjects, the fields, the industries that we're attracted to, and even those that we might have thought about when we were kids, but put to the side because we were doing the practical thing to get us to make the money or to do whatever. So one of the things that gets taken out of the process is money to begin with.
Mm.
You can't explore everything that you need to look at as a possibility if money is looming over your head, like I have to make a certain amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
Because the truth is, when you're doing something that you really, really enjoy, the money, I know it sounds corny, but the money does come. You find ways to make money with it. But if you don't identify what that is first, then you're always going to be stuck in this loop of wherever the safekeeping self takes you, back to the status quo. So we also go into what's a bottom line amount of money you need to make. So there's that practical part. What are the rewards and benefits that you need in your work? And what geographical areas are you looking at that will support you in the work that you do? Like, even if how does your current area support you where you live? And what do you need in that? And if you ever consider moving, at least you have a roadmap to get there. And then the next and very last piece is the life purpose part that really takes all of that information and puts together what really we are all here to do in terms of service. That is very personal to you. What are you here to do?
Mm-hmm.
So that actually becomes fairly easy to put together after you've done the first part of this. And so what comes out of it is that I call it the cream rising to the top. So the cream rising to the top will start to show up. Like, you'll start to see repetition in terms of ideas and industries, maybe, or types of work, or types of businesses, or types of maybe lateral moves, or jobs in general that interest you, that will take you to the first part of your path. And so I also use, I don't know, did I send you? I'm not sure if I sent you this. Did I send you this?
Yes, you did.
Right. So you saw the part that has the tree trunk in it, this part.
Yeah.
So this is a metaphor for ADHD and career. So down here it says food industry or food. So food, for example, is a subject. How many people do you know that just are all about food? Everything is about food for them. They're into creating amazing recipes. They're amazing cooks or chefs, or everything for them is kind of centered around food, not just eating food, but actually living, growing, having some aspect of food be part of their life. So when you lay that foundation, it makes it easier to figure out what the first branch of this tree is that you would go to. And it might involve training of some kind. It might involve using some skills to go into a whole new industry, but the skills that you already have. Just so the first step in the class that I do, just go to the first branch. You don't fill all of these branches out, because your nonlinear brain is going to take you to the next branch. So that's why we only go to the first one, because where is your brain taking you? Do you see what I'm saying? It's not going to be a prescribed path in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, that's how life is. Not a prescribed path. You look backwards at life, it's not a straight line. It's quite a course that you're taking yourself through. That's really fascinating, Shell, and I thank you for sharing that. And just from my own personal experience, I know that finding this path for me, it was a lot of me spending time with myself, figuring out my journey, and without any sort of external input to help me to distract me, right? Those external inputs didn't help me. They actually distracted me. And me sitting with me
fabulous.
and mapping it out that made all the difference. And anytime I have a major breakthrough, there was a great book called Deep Work. And in that book, it's really just sitting with yourself and a notepad, a pen, and just writing down ideas that come to you, because in that deep work, you are going to find the things that are really important and that you really want to do, and not that you feel like you're being pushed to do. And if you don't spend time finding those things with yourself, you're not going to find them externally by somebody else, and by the external world, like distracting you and pushing you in a bunch of different directions. So I love the work that you do. I want to thank you for coming on. We have to wrap the show up, but I love that you've done this for people with ADHD. What a powerful thing to help somebody direct something that seems like a curse, but it can be a gift if you use it correctly. So they can find 100%. Out more about you at passion2career.com. And I want to thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Rob. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. This has been the Unstuck Movement.